80 to 90% of this plugin is you, the producer. The remaining 10 to 20% is what the AI does, and that is how we should grow hand in hand with AI, in my opinion. Hey guys, and welcome back to Astro Music and Tutorials. And I'm here to tell you that AI is taking over, whether we like it or not. Now, as producers and creatives in general, it is our job to stay ignorant to this fact, or we can grow hand in hand with AI. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a fan of AI that completely takes away the creative ingenuity of a producer or a creative in general. But I am starting to understand and accept an AI that enhances like 10% or 20% of a producer's output, which is what brings me to this week's topic, AI Violin by AI Studio. I'm not a producer that uses AI in my production, but there's a good chance that I just might use this. Now let's get into the video and I'll show you exactly why this plugin might be useful. If you guys are seeing this and wondering if FL Studio has come out with a new update or something, no, this is not FL Studio. This is AI Studio. AI Studio, the company that I was just talking about earlier that came out with AI Violin. AI Violin is their second tool that they're coming out with. So previously they released a tool called the AI Vocals, which in all honesty is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in music production. I highly recommend you guys go to YouTube and check out the demo, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about AI Violin. So if you've listened to my music, I like making cinematic lo-fi at times. And when I make these cinematic lo-fi, I like using strings and flutes in my songs. But every time I use my strings, because I'm not a professional qualified composer or anything, it's hard for me to bring out the realistic sound that a violin or a cello can make. When I make something, it sounds a little bit more robotic. It has gotten better over the years, I can tell you that, but it's still not completely realistic. And that's where AI Violin comes in. In AI Violin, all you have to do is import a MIDI file of a melody that you've created, and using one of the three inbuilt violin tones, it does all the automations and the velocities and the swells for you, and it gives you a realistic violin sound on top of the melody that you just made. I think it's easier if I show you than if I just waste more time explaining it to you. So I have this project loaded up in my FL Studio. This is a beat that I made in last week's video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Anyway, I decided to make a violin melody on top of this beat. So I decided to load up my BBC Symphony Orchestra. Now, I didn't really plan out the melody or anything. I just hit the record button and just improvised. And this is what I came up with. And now to the untrained and amateur ear, that's going to sound amazing. First of all, the BBC Symphony Orchestra has some great selection of orchestral sounds. They're sampled from some of the highest quality instruments played by some of the greatest musicians. It's still not realistic enough. The melody sounds very robotic. This isn't what a human musician will do. Go to YouTube or Spotify, listen to some orchestral scores and see how they play it. I'm lacking a lot of human elements. On top of that, look at my velocity. It's too consistent. It's not supposed to be this consistent. And there aren't any swells or any fade-offs or anything. I mean, look at this note over here. It stops over here. Listen to how it sounds. It's just a sudden stop. That's not what a violinist is supposed to do. They're supposed to slowly bring down the velocities before they start the next note. Now, yeah, I could spend a lot of my time automating each and every velocity note. And I have done that before. That is what I usually do, not including the other processing that you have to do on top of it. And I'm lucky that the string melodies that I create and use are very simple. If you compare this with like an orchestra composition of someone professional, this would be like an ant compared to a planet. But it works for me. That's why I stick to it. And this is how AI Violin can be useful to me. All I have to do is export the MIDI file. Once I do that, all I have to do is import that MIDI file into AI Studio, into one of the three violin tones that I mentioned, violin presets. And now let me show you the two comparisons. So this is the BBC Symphony Discover on FL Studio without any processing or automation. And next we have the violin Gabriel Bochi. I don't know how you say that, but this is what the A Studio version sounds like. It's already 10 times better. It could use a little reverb, but then we could do that once we get back to FL Studio. Now, the cool thing about AI Violin is that the articulation of the notes of the violin will change depending on how long the note is. For example, in my BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin, if I want like short notes or something, I have to specify spiccato or pizzicato. Usually these orchestra plugins have a trigger switch, which you can use to switch between these presets. But first of all, for that, you need a very, very big keyboard. The trigger switch is supposed to be like C1 or something. And in order for me to access C1, I have to go down a couple of octaves, which will totally mess up my recording. So what I have to do is basically record the two articulations separately. This is the long violin thing that I made that I just showed you. And then we have the short notes. There's a short note melody that I made, and it sounds like this. And this is what it sounds like in A Studio. I think that sounds so good. Now, I know some of you professional orchestral composers will have a lot to say about that. I'm pretty sure it doesn't sound realistic enough for you, but for me and the uses that I have in my lo-fi tracks, it's perfect. But anyway, if I just take these notes and if I just extend them a little bit, listen to how they're gonna sound now. So like I said, the articulation of the sound depends on the size of each note. That's so useful, especially for someone with like limited keys. Anyway, once you're satisfied with this sound, all you have to do is go to File, export the audio. So once you export that audio file into FL Studios, this is what it's going to sound like. Come on, you have to admit that sounds really good. And I made this using my limited orchestral knowledge. For my music, this is absolutely perfect. This is the type of AI that I can wholeheartedly accept. 80% of this is still on the producer's side. It depends on the producer's creative ingenuity. You need to make a melody for this AI tool to work. You can't just type in a prompt and have it make a melody for you. 80 to 90% of this plugin is you, the producer. The remaining 10 to 20% is what the AI does. And that is how we should grow hand in hand with AI, in my opinion. I just want to point out that this plugin is still in the beta testing phase, and its actual official release won't be until a couple of months or something. I believe the official date of release is in July. And after the official release, they're set to introduce expression controls, which you can further customize and control your string sound or vocal sound or whatever, make it sound more realistic. They're also planning to introduce a bunch of stringed instruments, more orchestral sounds, so you're not going to be just stuck with violins. You're gonna get more sounds. And a very important thing that I didn't showcase in this video is that the AI Studio is MIDI compatible. So you don't need to import MIDI sounds that you've made in your DAW into AI Studios. You can just connect your MIDI and just make melodies in AI Studio straight up. It's really that easy. Please let me know your thoughts about AI plugins and AI tools and just AI in general, I guess. Also, and more importantly, if you have any complaints about this plugin or me supporting it or anything, let me know in the comments and I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to know your input about this whole situation. And yeah, that's it for today's video. Like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you next week.